Hello and welcome to the United Debate Show. Well, it's been another record-breaking week for the Reds as they racked up 2 more wins to break the Football League record of 1,103 minutes without conceding a goal. We're discussing the victories over West Brom and Everton, as well as looking forward to this weekend's match at West Ham. And joining me ahead of all those little issues are ex-United defender Arthur Albiston and 1968 European Cup winner David Sadler. Gents, you're most welcome to the show. This time last week, Lou Macari and Andy Ritchie felt they might take 4 points out of the 6 available. They've exceeded their expectations. Have they exceeded yours by getting all 6 in those 4 days?
No, not really. I thought they're well capable of getting 6 points. Probably Lou and Andy, being ex-managers, are a wee bit pessimistic. But certainly I thought, strangely, if you win the first one and we'd won that quite comfortably, it makes it a little bit easier in the second one. But yeah, I had no doubts about getting 6 points out of the 2 games. I
think they felt Everton would be stubborn resistance, and thus it proved in a way, really.
That's exactly what happened. You know, obviously the West Brom game, we scored early and it was made more comfortable with Robinson getting sent off, so it made it a little bit easier for us. But Everton, it was exactly what we expected. A stuffy game, they're quite organised and disciplined under David Moyes. But when it's only at 1-0, you've always got a chance of maybe conceding a goal near the end or whatever, a goal out of nothing. But certainly, thankfully for us, our defence and Van der Sar broke that record, and we got another 3 points.
It's an astonishing record. I mean, we've been talking about it week on week with the various guests that have been in. The fact that it has been so many different back four in front of Van der Sar has made it all that more impressive, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. I mean, Arthur and I on the way in this morning we're talking. We think there's probably been 5 or 6 right backs alone. So, you know, that is difficult. And normally when you get this type of record, it's through the consistency of selection. And that just hasn't been the case with this. It couldn't have been, in fact, worse, if you like, in terms of going along that way. But the fact of the matter is that they're very well schooled. They come in and they slot in very well. We perform very well as a unit, whatever the selection has been. There's been 1 or 2 constants, obviously, Van der Sar. I think probably, if I'm totally honest, the last 2 seasons, early on in the season, I felt a little bit wary of his form.
Really?
But, you know, maybe that's just the way it is. He's not a youngster anymore, we know that. But he's certainly getting better as the season goes on. And if you like, hence this record. It's just a fantastic achievement.
In some ways, when there are clean sheet records, the focus is on the goalkeeper, naturally, especially as David was saying, he's been the consistent one. But in some ways, it's also about the fact he hasn't had that much to do. There hasn't been too much for him to do, let's be honest. So the protection has been very good as well.
Oh, the protection that they've given has been outstanding. It starts right from the front. You see the way Tevez closes people down, and being a defender behind all that, and the midfield players behind your strikers, watching them do that, it takes the pressure off you right away. But sometimes when you don't have a lot to do as a goalkeeper, that can bring its own problems. Your concentration has got to be spot on. And you watch United attacking, and if you glance back at Van der Sar, he's right out his box. It's as if he's almost wanting to get involved in the play, and he's ready for anything happening. And he's used to the ball with his hands, and also kicking as well, which is excellent. You know, so he's always ready to start off a move, and you can see that his concentration levels have got to be really high.
And I guess that comes with the experience, doesn't it? I mean, to keep your concentration level when things aren't that busy for you is half the task, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, we concentrate very well now and bring a lot of experience to it. But that's exactly what he does. And you know, going back to what I was saying before about being a little cautious about his early season form, I think that's just something as well. He grows into the season, and now he's right in the middle of it. Of course, I do think that the actual record will bring its own problems too.
Why?
Because I mean, I sense, for example, against Everton, that 1-0, whatever the circumstances, is always a tough scoreline. Arthur was talking about that. You can go in off the corner flag or anything almost, and that can happen. But I just sensed a little bit on Saturday that there was a little bit of, it's 1-0 and we're sort of protecting that. Well, United perhaps should be experienced enough to cope with that, but it is just something else that comes along. It's almost like when you have these long winning runs, you almost want to get it over with, get that loss out of the way, because, you know, it's sort of there and people are talking about it all the time. So.
You can feel the pressure building up, if you like, but the players are professional enough just to go out and think, well, you know, the next game's West Ham for us in the league. We're concentrating on getting 3 points. If it ends up 5-4 or 4-3, we've got the points. But there'll be a lot of pressure mounting up. This could be the record broken again, you know.
I mean, it's astonishing to think, was it Nasri who scored the last goal in the Premier League for Arsenal back in, was it November? I lose track, it was that long ago. It's astonishing, really. I mean, and they walked off the park at the Emirates that day to think that there wouldn't be another goal conceded the rest of 2008, the beginning of 2009.
If you'd have said to the manager, you're not going to concede a goal probably till February or March in the league, you'd think you're off your head. You know, that's an incredible run of games. And as David said, you can get penalties given against you for nothing. You can get somebody shooting and it can hit somebody else and ricochet and go in. So to go 12 matches without conceding a goal is just incredible. And you've got to take your hat off to the team. Fantastic run of consistency.
I mean, you both played in sides who've strung together runs. Do you start becoming aware as players of these runs building up and these records looming?
That's really what I was sort of leaning towards before. You know, I mean, I think most of the records that I was in were where they were scoring goals all the time against us. So, you know, not quite the keeping of clean sheets, but you know, that will be possibly another pressure to add to everything else. I just think that they're going about it so well at the moment that professionally they'll deal with it and cope with that. But it does add, you know, it has to add that bit of extra pressure, I'm sure.
I mean, let's talk about the result against Everton in the context of the events at Anfield. Chelsea and Liverpool go into that game knowing United have won again. How do you view that result? Was that a good result for United, or would you have preferred a draw and no one gaining, if you like?
Well, I think ideally, if you could get both teams dropping 2 points, that would have been perfect, really. If you had to say to me, who would you have preferred if somebody's got to win the game, I'd have said, well, I don't want an away win, because Chelsea winning at Anfield, which is hard, gives them a lot of confidence. Not many teams are going to go there and get 3 points this season. So if you're going to have one team winning it, it's got to be the home team, I think. And we can affect them still, because we've got to play them at Old Trafford next month. So without being disrespectful to Liverpool, I'm not too disappointed about them winning it, because it's still in our hands.
Is that the way you view it?
Yeah, I think so. The ideal result, I mean, I was sat in the comfort of my armchair yesterday, sort of cheering both of them on, really, and because I would have perhaps liked a draw. Wasn't to be. In the end, Liverpool got the result. Yes, they've got to come to us. So, you know, that is still, I mean, just as the whole run-in really is in our hands now, and we've got to play Liverpool. They got a victory against us early in this season. We want to put that right. We've done very well against Liverpool, I would suggest, in recent years. So, you know, I would have actually liked the draw, but, you know, I'll take what's there.
Going back to the game against Everton, it was all about penalty decisions, one that was, two that could have been, one for each side, really, on top of the one that was given. What were your assessments of those big calls?
Well, the first one, I think people could look at it and say it was a bit soft, but Arteta did dangle his back leg out, really, as if to say, go on, fall over that. And the referee's close enough to give it. The second one I felt was more of a penalty. You've got a defender now making a challenge, Lescott, and he knew he was travelling at some speed, and he thought, well, I've got to slow down here. And in fairness, he did put his hands up to get out the way, but he did catch him. So I thought the second one was probably more givable than the first one, but you're not going to get two.
And the Everton claim at the end, were you concerned about that one, especially with it only being 1-0 at the time?
We're talking about this before we came on. Every crossing that goes into the box and corners that get thrown in, there's people bear hugging each other, and if you've got two guys 6'3", sort of grappling with each other, there's going to be a little bit of pulling and shoving and what have you. Certainly it looks as if their arms were tangled up, but that would have been a really soft one to get. Maybe if they'd have been at Goodison they might have got it, but not at Old Trafford.
I think as it stands, those sort of issues, and they're just not giving them. If they start giving them, you know, we're going to have 3 and 4 penalties given per match. You know, they'll give 2 at each end and even it out and say, right, well, you know, you can't do that, and that's what it'll be. I mean, with the benefit of hindsight, which is what we have, you know, I think there were 3 penalties on against Everton. You know, the one that was given, the second one for United, and then you know, arguably the Ferdinand and Lescott. I mean, so that's with the benefit of hindsight. It's not that easy for referees trying to see through players and round players and whatever, and it's over like that. So, you know, you can't really have a go at the referee. Fact of the matter is, I think that the result was, certainly in terms of the match that I saw, that was the right result.
Maybe if it had been one of the smaller Everton players like Pinar or Osman that was tangling with Ferdinand, it might have been more noticeable, but it's two big lads, both the same height, same weight, and I think the refs just thought, nah, you're both at it.
Do you think if you know, that incident sort of highlights the slender nature of a 1-0 lead, do you think if Sir Alex was being critical of his side, he might have come in afterwards and said, hey, United today were the better side, but nearly didn't win the game? That call could have gone against.
To go the period of time that we've gone now, you've got to be pretty fortunate, because, you know, we touched on it before, those sort of incidents, that they can go, it's on a split second, he sees it as a penalty or he doesn't, and that's it, that's the record done. And it's the same thing, deflections, and away they go. So, I mean, I think Alec and everybody will be fairly philosophical about it all. They'll just sort of take it, well, it's great, you know, that's fine, but, you know, let the business of today and the business next week is going to be winning the game. Let's get that done. If we don't concede a goal, that's great.
OK, thanks for the moment, gents. As always, part 1 has zipped by. Make sure you join us for part 2 on the United Debate Show. Welcome back to part 2 of the United Debate Show, where I'm joined by Arthur Albiston and David Sadler. And actually, we were chatting during the break there about has there ever been two brothers who led opposing clubs out before? Obviously, Phil and Gary Neville at the weekend. We were racking our brains, aren't we? Can we think of anyone?
The only one that, I mean, literally, we're just thinking about it, obviously on our feet here, but the only one possibly I would have thought might have been the Charlton brothers. But Jack wasn't really the skipper at Leeds, although he probably would have stood in if Billy Bremner hadn't been available. But I can't really think of any. No. The Greenoffs, for example, or the Buckens, they never got.
No, brothers playing together, but
leading the two teams out.
Newcastle player Terry Hibbett and his brother, he played for Wolves.
Kenny and Terry, maybe.
Maybe the one.
Imagine how proud the Neville family were at the weekend. I mean, you forget these little little subplots.
If you go back and look at it, they looked as if they'd never met one another. Sort of walking out, you know, concentrating,
just ready to shake hands and then kick lots at each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get back on track again. So United clear at the top. Liverpool look as though they're emerging as the title challengers. And that game a month away at Old Trafford, obviously there's a few twists and turns to go before then, but that could be quite a pivotal fixture now, couldn't it?
Well, it's always a massive game, you know, Liverpool, home or away, you know, the fans make it that way. But as you point out, though, with them getting a result yesterday against Chelsea, there's still some league games to be played prior to that, but hopefully we can still have the edge and be ahead of them when we go into that game, and I think the pressure will mount on Liverpool, and it will do towards the end of the season, because obviously they've not won the Premiership for so long. And
I was thinking, obviously United played the game in hand in a couple of weeks' time against Fulham, but of course then they missed one with the Carling Cup, so it'd be pretty much back on track again. So it's likely they'll be close together. It might be even, possibly, if Liverpool keep matching the results, that they could match or go above United on that Old Trafford game. It's going to be a big one, isn't it?
We're constantly, this season, it seems, playing catch-up with the games, and something we really haven't had that much in the past. And it's unfortunate, I think, because, you know, you do get this slightly sort of misleading. I fall in the camp of having the points rather than the games, but, you know, it does look like that again. There's no question that the Liverpool match is going to be critical one way or the other, whether we've still got games in hand or not. It's going to be a game which might well decide the destiny of the Premiership.
How do you view Chelsea's challenge now?
Well, I think when we beat them a month ago at Old Trafford 3-0 and beat them convincingly, I think you could see their players walking off the pitch thinking, this is what we've got to put up with for the next 3 months, that we're competing against this lot. I think Chelsea looked a little bit downhearted yesterday, walking off, as you would expect, and I think they're too far behind now. Really? Yes, United will drop some points, so will Liverpool between now and the end of the season, but I don't think they'll drop enough, and I don't think Chelsea will win all their games.
Right.
I was a little bit disappointed in the sort of post-match, Chelsea match reactions, if you like, because I've felt most of this season that Chelsea were the big threat to United. I mean, of course, you know, when you start, Arsenal and as it turns out, Liverpool are well there. But from the early part of the season, I felt that Chelsea were going to be our main danger. And I believe that against Chelsea, we put in our performance of the season. I thought that was an excellent performance. All I read following that was what a poor team Chelsea were, which they're most decidedly are not a poor team. But that victory then, and I think the nature of it, we really outplayed Chelsea on the day, subsequently won 3-0. And I agree totally with what Arthur's talking about. They looked, you know, they didn't look quite right yesterday, and certainly at the end of the game. Now, whether that is, you know, it'd be too early to say this to write them off totally, but I'm a little bit surprised that they're just waning away.
So if it is, well, I don't like the phrase two-horse race, you never know, but if it is likely to be the biggest challenge from Anfield, how do you assess what's going on there at the moment? Because it does seem a lot of off-the-field politics that United have managed to steer clear from for a long, long time.
Well, it's a strange one because in our day when we played against Liverpool, you never got a peep of controversy coming out of Anfield at all. You know, they kept everything very close together, everything in-house. Now you're on about takeovers and you've got owners not talking to each other, sitting like 20 yards apart in the director's box. The manager doesn't know whether he's going to sign a new contract or not, and it's all a little bit of a sort of strange undercurrent coming from there. But we're quite happy with all the sort of stories and rumours coming out because obviously it detracts a little bit, and you know, it's just strange. But I can't say I'm too concerned about it. And when Benitez came out with all these facts 6 or 8 weeks ago, I don't think that helped either. He's obviously got a bee in his bonnet, but it's backfired on him a little bit.
I mean, the keen issue, you know, if you think about it long and hard enough, you can come up with all sorts of concoctions with that. I mean, on the face of it, Liverpool signed him for supposedly 20 million, and he doesn't play. You know, Benitez doesn't pick him. Now, if Benitez buys him, you would think he plays him. He certainly has him in the squad, and if he's not playing every game, he's available and can come on, etc. I mean, recent weeks he hasn't been included in squads, and I mean he wasn't at the weekend. So that's a strange one. I mean, if the manager buys him, and you know, we then read there are undercurrents about, you know, the control that Benitez has and wants, etc. So long may it continue, I say. Let them row with one another, like so.
Well, I'm sure the United players are seeing this, and the United squad, and I'm sure Sir Alex is seeing this as well. And he's thinking, well, Liverpool are now emerging as our title rivals, and they've got things going on as distractions. I mean, that's got to be another thing. Think that United must be building their own confidence that it might be their year again. It's not
healthy for all the off-the-field stuff, but the players really, when they go out, Torres and Gerrard aren't thinking about that. They're just thinking about winning. And that is two players that can scare any team. The pair of them, obviously Torres has been out injured for a while, but he's come back in, 2 goals yesterday. His confidence will be booming. Gerrard's obviously had a few off-the-field problems as well, which hasn't helped him, but you can't write them off. But I just think we've got ourselves in a really healthy position, and we've still got to play them at Old Trafford.
OK, well, let's go to United's next game, West Ham. I mean, they've suddenly hit a very, very good run of form, an excellent draw at Arsenal. There aren't many teams who'll keep them to 0 at the Emirates. And how do you view that challenge? Upton Park last year, United, of course, came unstuck, didn't they?
Yeah, they've... overall, probably in recent times, they've got as good a record against us as anybody else in the Premiership. But you're quite right, Ali. You know, if we'd taken this match, you know, a couple of months ago, most people would have been away banker type thing, you know, and it's not that now. We know that. I mean, I've seen a bit of West Ham lately, admittedly on the TV, and you know, they look as if they're pulling together. Obviously, they've got a fantastic manager, certainly in terms of a player and a figure, and you know, he was wonderful for our game here. But he does seem to have got them going, and sometimes the adversity that's gone on, you know, they were one of the clubs who were going to have to sell in, you know, they needed to sell in the window and all that. But it seems to, on the field, it seems to be uniting them, and they're going to be a tough. I think they're going to be tough on.
Well, it's always been a difficult ground to go to. I think since they built that new standard, it's taken a little bit of the atmosphere away because they were so close to you there. But the crowd get right behind them at home. They'll be shouting for every decision. And I remember one year we went down there at the end of the season, we could have won the league, and they were playing as if their life depended on it. That's what you've got to expect when you play United, and that's what you get.
Might that be the day that a goal is finally conceded? Would you guess? I'm not saying that the day United lose. I'm just wondering if that might be the day.
I think if the manager sat here now and he said you're going to win 2-1, 3-2 or 4-3, he'd say that's fine.
Sure. Forget the record, take it, yeah.
It's an interesting thing about West Ham. You mentioned Gianfranco Zola. I mean, I saw West Ham during a period where they look as though they couldn't get another point under Gianfranco Zola in the autumn. But the principles were obvious. They weren't going to try anything other than the principles that Gianfranco Zola has always had. Yeah. That says a lot about them, and that probably says a lot about the way they're going to be playing against United on Sunday.
Well, they came up to Old Trafford in the autumn, and they looked terrible, and we got a result against them in a midweek game, and to be fair to Zola, he stuck by his principles and he's got them playing, trying to play football, and that should suit us really, because they're a football team, they're a football club, that's their traditions, and we seem to do better against teams, or especially away from home when it's easier. I just think of maybe going to Stoke a few weeks ago, big strong side, balls getting lumped in, and it's a tough game, but at least you know what you get at West Ham. They try and play football. They can hurt teams as well, but you know what sort of game you're going to get.
And that's why I was wondering if that might be the day, because they have got that very open style. It's almost they're quite prepared to concede because they'll go forward and try and get goals at the other end. Yeah,
I mean, again, totally agree with Arthur. If we can take the win and that includes a goal against us, then the manager and everybody, including us here, we would take that. That would be great. I mean, I think people like Zola are fantastic for our game. He came here, and as a player, he was just magnificent. There's no other way to describe it. His whole attitude, the way he carries himself, he's terrific. And if he can do that and maintain that, and it's going to be very difficult in management, but if he can hold on to all those principles and go through with that, it would be fantastic for our game. And hopefully, that clubs like West Ham will survive. We've got to do more than survive. We need to beat them.
And let's go into our little crystal ball. What do you imagine for next Sunday?
Result-wise, I think we'll get a tough game, and as we touched on before, they've got not a bad record against us down there, but I think the way we are going at the moment, and we've got the momentum going, we've got a free week, no midweek game leading up to that. It is on Sunday, so it gives some of the players that are maybe carrying little knocks just that extra day to get over it, so I can see us going down there and getting a result.
David?
Yeah, I'm the same. We're just going over the top with our injuries, hopefully. We've had not been too much detail into it, but we've had pretty horrific injury list. That seems to be shortening now, and we're getting those players back. It's a tough place to go. They're all going to be tough from here on, but we'll win.
OK, gents, thank you for your honesty, as ever, and for giving yourself the opportunity to look as though you've fallen on a banana skin this time next week. Thanks again for your company. Thanks to Arthur. Thanks to David. That's it for this week's United Debate Show. Join us same time, same place next week. Until then, from all of us here, it's goodbye.